Hey guys, I'm a little late giving you feedback on these, but this is still good information that I wanted to cover. Uh, that stuff that will keep coming up and will apply to activities we'll do all through the semester. This is the rewriting the syllabus activity, and I had asked you to read this article. Your syllabus doesn't have to look like a contract, and here's one example of what a teacher did to kind of rewrite the syllabus. And so I asked y'all to kind of look at what I do with my syllabus and see if you had any ideas. I'm going to talk a little bit more about things that aren't even necessarily covered in this article. Y'all did a good job in terms of what the activity asked you to do, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the elements of design, or some people call it visual rhetoric, visual design. The way we create and share information nowadays, you can't really separate design from content because, we share everything pretty much digitally nowadays, and all of that has different ways that the documents are laid out and designed, and so the visual design is just important as the content. So I'm going to cover just some basic stuff to kind of help you think about that. This is a good resource that I like, and when you think about visual rhetoric, visual design, these are some basic things, some of the basic concepts. Uh, and let me just give you a few kind of quick sort of what I tell people. We kind of have a tendency when we start thinking about visual design or designing, when people design posters or flyers or they're doing things like that, it's just kind of, it happens with nearly everybody, and I'm included, that we think, well, we've got to do everything we can. We've got to put in as much color and different fonts and just all kinds of crazy stuff. But really, that's really the opposite of what you should do. What I always teach people, two basic things, is keep it simple and professional. So simple and professional. So you're going to use what you have to your best advantage, not just kind of go wild and crazy and use everything you can think of. So take, for example, color. When you're doing a document, one color is usually a good rule to go by. Like I said, simple. One color, but you could use different variations of that color. You could even take that color and, do different presentations of it, say checks with the color, or like checkerboard, or circular design, but still has the red in it. So, but still you're just sticking with the one color. Sometimes you can use two, maybe three, but very rarely. I mean, a good rule of thumb is stick with one. And if you do use more than one, just be very sparing with it. Uh, Contrast. If you go back to this here, this is a good example of contrast. The dark here with the white text gives it a very good contrast, and then the white around the character image here really sets that off more for you. So that's a real simple, easy thing to do. And let's say back to our color red, if I'm going to use just one color, I could do some of this where I use red for some background to, make the font lighter and therefore stand out. Repetition, and the idea of repetition is kind of saying you want to be consistent as well. Sort of the same thing, repetition, consistent. Repetition here, you can see boxes, boxes, boxes. They're all the same. You can see the heading, same text, same text, same text. You can see the alignment. These all line up the same way. Those are things, repetition, and like I said, consistency. So I'll show you. First of all, let me say I really, really appreciate the students who let me, who volunteered. I picked two here, and I know there were a couple of others of you, and believe me, hopefully you'll still be willing to let me do that with future assignments. I forget who this one was. I know it was one of the fabulous young ladies we have in the class, so I apologize. But when you think about consistency or repetition, you can see here there's kind of some different things going on here We've got this text is different and bolded and dark. This heading is different from this one. This one looks like maybe it's italicized. And then we go back. This student learning objective one is different from this one. So see, for your reader, you want those things to be consistent. And then color, this is a good use of the blue here, because one thing I didn't mention about color, using one color, if you do have one image, you don't use a lot of images that have a lot of stuff going on, but it's okay to get by with using one, like here. The color, and then you can pull a color out of that and use it some in your document. So here, but I wouldn't recommend doing the whole thing in blue, but the color contrast there, this blue pulled out of this image is good. But you can see how there's not a good consistent presentation here, and it's not consistent, or it doesn't have repetition. Then you've got arrangement. Here you've got, these are centered, and then if you look at the example here, see, they're not centered. Centered text should only be used for like the main big headings, not not your smaller headings that you have within a document. Here, yeah, you want this to be centered, but these kinds of things, left aligned, and the reason you do that, it's easier for the reader. As readers, we read from left to right, so if something's in the middle, it's just harder for me to follow. And see, this is in the middle too, but somewhere along the line, it got into our heads that aligning things, center aligning was a good thing, but it's not. Now this one's better. See how student learning objectives here is all left aligned. See, that's much better for the reader, easier to follow. Why, why you have to ask why with this, with design, the same you have to ask why with what you're saying. When I do design, when I choose colors or I choose elements, why am I doing it? There needs to be a reason. Here, let's see, this is Nicholas, so thank you, Nicholas, for letting me use yours. This one here, this image, it's kind of cute, but I think I would still ask why. I mean, late work here, I think students would see this and know, that's, that this part is about late work. I don't know that this to me is just a little bit of extra. And like I said, we sort of have that idea. We got to put in a bunch of fancy pictures and this and that and the other. This one I really like, for student success. It's got that angle to it, so I thought that was a good use. Blue, it's got blue and yellow, and then green, which kind of works. I'm not sure that that's too much, but here I don't know that I would make this font have the little white outline. That's a little bit too much. It really doesn't help the reader. And that's the kind of thing I was talking about. We think we've got to do all the bells and whistles and extra stuff. This image, I'm not sure that adds much to what's going on here. I would ask why on that. This one I think is pretty cute. You can have one, but basically beyond that, I wouldn't load it down with all these extras. But, if you look at the example, he's got the one main big one. And this one, these grunge kind of characters, they do sort of match. And so he does have one, another one here. But here again, don't go overboard with that stuff. And, we're doing a syllabus here. I apologize, my email's popping up here. But, we're doing a syllabus here so we can play around a little bit more. A lot of what I'm telling you here with these design tips is you think about, the more formal kind of documents you're going to write. It's going to be something you want to stick with the more simple and professional looking. Negative space is anywhere that you don't have anything. Like if here, this, some people will call it white space. And you can use that to your advantage. So here we've got you know, white space here. You've got some white space around here. Let's see what this one's got. White space, negative space. So that's stuff you can use here, white space, to set this off. Let me just say, okay, as far as typography, that's the font that you pick. Here again, simple. Pick one font. Use one font for the whole thing. But what you do, the secret is, let's see, this font matches, this font matches. It looks like this font matches this font, but technically this font and this font should all be the same, but what you do is make this one larger, make it a different color. Here you've got font. Then if you need headings, you can italicize, you can underline. So keep the same font, use one font, but you can do different things with that one font. The reason you do that, again, is for the reader. If you have a bunch of fonts, and I think this one, see, it looks like maybe, I don't know if they're different fonts or if this one looks like it's italicized, and I'm not sure. Italicized is good, but I'm not sure why this one would be italicized and in color and these other ones wouldn't. Here, now this is a good use of, bolding. So you're using the same font, so instead of making this a different font or trying to make it fancy or whatever, it's bolded. And I like the way Nicholas did the bolding here. That's a really good way to make that stand out and easy for the reader. So those are just kind of some quick things. We'll talk more about it, but this is one resource. But keep that in mind as you work on stuff. And again, thank you to Nicholas and the other young lady that I apologize again, I forgot your name, but you both did a really, really good job. And thank you very much for letting me use your stuff as an example. So